Hey everyone, my name is David Rao and I'm the music teacher who blogs at makemomentsmatter.org. You can also find my ideas on Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, Twitter, and a variety of other places when you search for my name, David Rao, or Make Moments Matter Music Education. I'm so excited you decided to spend this evening with me talking about music education, maybe talking about distance learning, talking about lesson ideas and resources. I'm planning on getting to a lot of that tonight, but let me get a couple things quickly out of the way. All through the night, if I'm talking about a resource or an idea or something, I might say it's on the links page. If you want to know about the links or resources I'm sharing on my blog, which is makemomentsmatter.org, there's a tab that says video, and under that tab is a page dedicated filled with all the links and things that I'm talking about. You can actually access that if you're on Facebook. It's the bottom of the caption for this video, and if you're on Instagram, it's on my link in profile. You can connect to the links page. There's also a Facebook group that I might mention a couple times called Every Moment Matters Music Education Community. If you're already a part of that group, great. If you're not, you can join that group. It's free, and it's just a place where we can connect and talk about music ed and bounce around ideas. And one of the things I posted there today was a post asking you about your questions. What are your questions about digital learning, about general music, about whatever, because tonight is going to be all about those questions. So if you have questions, you can pepper them in the conversation here on this video now if you want, and I'll go back and answer those as much as I can later, but I'm going to be answering questions throughout the whole video. Oh, and one more thing. This is the last Musical Mondays live video of the semester and of the school year in the United States. This is actually the 60th video. I've done 60 of these, which seems crazy. So if you're like, oh, but I want more ideas, well, there are 60 of them in the archive now. You can go back and watch. I'm going to stop just for the semester. I'll come back in the fall, but the reason is because there are a lot of other things to do, and so Musical Mondays does take up a lot of time. So I'm going to be spending that time doing other things and hopefully sharing in other ways. So you might still see me, but not in a Musical Monday video. Okay, so I'm going to be talking today all about digital music, distance learning, things like that. I am not an expert. I am just like everyone else trying to figure this out on the fly. I have a friend who said it's like, use that expression, it's like building an airplane while you're in flight. Like we're all just trying to figure out how to do it, and none of us really have any of the answers. We're all just sort of working on it together. So I've asked all of y'all for your questions, and I've got some of those written down. I'm going to answer some of those first. While you might have other questions, you can leave them in the comments as we go. And towards the end, I'll cycle back and answer any questions that I see in the feed tonight. But first thing, if you're looking for lesson ideas, I have a demo website with different lesson ideas, things you can do, and a little bit of an explanation for you as a teacher. And that's digitalmusiclessons.weebly.com. You can go to that website and just pull out lesson blocks if you want them, and you can use my wording with kids. That's totally fine. Just don't send kids to that website. I've had a couple music teachers who've just sent parents and kids to that website, which is, I guess, okay, except that then I get questions like, is this graded? And some people putting like their students' personal information in there, and I don't want to, I can't assign your kids grades, and I don't want them to leave any of their personal information. So you can take the ideas and use them on your own, but that's digitalmusiclessons.weebly.com if you want some just preset lesson ideas for you. Okay, the last little reminder I'm going to do before I actually get into the content is just give yourself grace. A second ago I said, it's like we're building the airplane while we're on the airplane in the air. I think a lot of teachers are really focusing on the stress of, I've got to do so much, and how do I make sure that all my kids are learning, and how do I get them all connected? And I think a big thing that we have to remember is we're all trying to figure this out. Nobody has this completely under control. I said last week, if anyone says, I know exactly the right way to do it, and here's the way to do it, they're either lying or they're trying to sell you something, or probably both. Because we're all just trying to make something happen with an imperfect system in an imperfect situation. And also you have to give yourself grace, because we are also living through a global pandemic. I mean, it's not just a snow day. Like, people are worried about going outside. And so don't build on top of whatever else you already have to live through and deal with. Don't build on top of that this idea that you have to be a perfect teacher at the same time. You just have to do what the best you can do with the resources and the skills at your disposal, and that's it. You don't have to be a Pinterest teacher right now, if you know what I mean. Like, you don't have to be the star teacher example. We're all working through this together, so give yourself some grace. Yeah. I also think about when you think about students. I worked in a building for several years where we had a very, very, very low socioeconomic status for almost the majority of our students, or almost all of our students, for the majority of our students. And I remember in professional development, people kept saying, you have to deal with Maslow before you can deal with Bloom's, or you have to deal with, meaning you have to deal with all of the safety and the shelter and the food and all of that before you can even think about doing higher order thinking or critical thinking or whatever. And so I think it applies in this situation. We have to think about making sure that our students are safe, making sure our students know that they're cared for and taken care of before we try and push them into content, because otherwise they won't be able to handle it. And we can't handle it either. We can't handle any of that stuff until we know that we're safe and taken care of. And so just give yourself grace in this process. We're all working through it. It's a tough time, and just do what you can do with the resources and the opportunities at your disposal. Okay, so lesson ideas. I already mentioned the website digitalmusiclessons.weebly.com, and that is just full of lesson ideas you can take and borrow and use if you want. There are the last few weeks of Musical Mondays live videos I've dedicated to digital music lessons and digital learning, so there are a lot of ideas there. I want to talk about 2 books that you can use for now or for later. And these are books that I was planning on sharing in April, long before we were sent home. So these are 2 books that I'm planning on using. I'm going to flip the picture here really quick, Facebook. Sorry about if this feels weird. Did that work? No. Hold on. Okay, there we go. This is just so y'all can see it a little better. So these are 2 books that I was planning on using anyway, and they're about dancers. I am an ORF trained teacher, and so a lot of what I do is based on music and movement and play and creativity, and a big part of that is movement. And for some kids, it's hard for them to make the connection between movement and music, and I always try and highlight that and give us a chance to move and a chance to do that. But I also like bringing in books about dancers or people who move to give kids examples of that. So one book that I'm going to be sharing with students this year and the years to come is called Dancing in the Wings by Debbie Allen, pictures by Kadir Nelson. I might have shared this one before for Women's History Month, but it's a great book. And it's about a little girl who, she says, my mother calls me sassy because I like to put my hands on my hips and because I always have something to say. Well, if you had feet as big as mine, you'd understand why. And so she ends up wanting to be a dancer. She goes to ballet class, but she has trouble and she doesn't quite fit the mold. And it's this whole story about how she really wants to be, really tries to sort of homogenize a little bit. And when she goes to a dance audition, she wears this bright yellow leotard, and it's her standing out that makes her special. And she does end up being a ballerina, which is really pretty. Pictures in here, really pretty pictures, really beautiful story. It's a great book, but I like pairing this with this book called Firebird, and this is the story of Misty Copeland. And so let's see if it has I think in the very back it actually has the actual, let me see. So it actually in the back has a letter from Misty Copeland, who was, I think she was the first black prima ballerina in the United States. think. Anyway, so it has a letter to students there, but it actually tells her story, or it tells a story. Let me just do the first couple pages here. The space between you and me is longer than forever. You are the sky and clouds and air. Your feet are swift as sunlight, stretching across the skyline like the day-long sun over the horizon. Me, I'm gray as rain, heavy as nap time, low as a storm pressing on rooftops. I could never hope to leap the space between. Darling child, don't you know? You're just where I started. Let the sun shine on your face. Your beginning's just begun. So it's this. I just think the pictures, the illustrations are just absolutely beautiful. But I love the story it tells. It really does sort of tell the story of Misty Copeland and how she grew, from a young age, and how she studied and became better and got more practice, and then eventually it ends with her in Stravinsky's Firebird. It's a really cool story. It's fun to pair with Dancing in the Wings. But it's just two great books about movers, about dancers, about ballerinas. And again, I like sharing these with kids, and I also like having them on my bookshelf. So even if students aren't actively reading it, we read it last year, they see it, they know it's out, and they know that movement and music are linked. I like them seeing those connections and making those connections. Okay, two cool books, Dancing in the Wings by Debbie Allen, and then Firebird by Misty Copeland, illustrated by Caldecott Honorary Christopher Myers. Let me just see. I saw a couple questions in there. Let me see if I can answer those. Actress from Fame, I do not know. That'd be a good one to check, Carrie. Okay, so these are two cool books. You could get them and share them now. And so what you could do is you could do a video of you doing a read aloud of those books, and you could share them with students now, or you could get them or put them on your list and plan to get them and then use them next year if you wanted to have a unit on dancers or ballerinas or ballet or whatever. What I also love to do is I love to have these books because I like having a connection between like the Nutcracker ballet and then ballet you might go and see now, because kids a lot of times will associate like, yes, ballets like with Nutcracker or certain works, but then don't associate it through the rest of the year with music, and I like making that connection. So as always, when I'm talking about read alouds, there's a whole list of publishers and how a lot of publishers are giving the rights to teachers to do read alouds in a digital format. There are just some stipulations about you have to, depending on the publisher, you might have to say the name of the publisher, and you might have to have it videotaped in a certain way. It's different for every publisher. And so I see someone asking on Instagram, are we able to do a read aloud and recorded lessons? Sometimes, yes, it depends on the publisher. So on the links page, I have a link to the School Library Journal. There's an article with all of the stipulations from all the major publishers. And so you might look at the publisher. So like Firebird was published by G.P. Putnam's Sons. And so you might be like, oh, I don't know what G.P. Putnam, what their rules are, but it also is an imprint of Penguin Young Readers Group. So I would go by the rules of Penguin Publishers. So you can do a little bit of research, see what publisher owns the publishing house, and then go by those rules. But like I said, if you go to the links page, there's a whole set of there's that article with a whole set of rules by different publishers and what they allow and what they don't allow. But most publishers are saying, yes, please do read alouds because we want you to use our books. We want you to know that we're a resource. And so most of them are allowing that, sometimes with stipulations. But do read alouds if you do read alouds. Okay, so those are just two books that I would use. Last week I talked about the iPhone stand that I've been using, the tripod I've been using. It's only $13. It's a really nice, actually very nice stand, and works for what I'm doing. I shared a couple weeks ago about the microphone that I used. It's just, you can plug it into your iPad or iPhone, and it ups the sound quality just a little bit. I even took it out during the video, and someone was like, "Ooh, I can hear the difference." Cool, yeah, so it's working. One more thing I wanted to show that I don't remember if I've shown or not is this iPad stand, and this is cool. I use this throughout the school year, not just because of this, but it's nice to have for this. But it's a tripod stand. It gets much smaller if you want it to, but it just connects around your iPad. You have to take the iPad out of the case, but it just grabs on and it all comes together. It's also not very expensive, but a really nice resource if you're going to be doing recordings and things like that. Okay, so a lot of people have been asking, how do you structure your lessons, or how do you prepare lessons? And I've sort of been thinking about it with the thing about giving kids choices. So I want to, for each grade level, what I'm doing is I'm preparing like a lesson or like a mini unit around some different options. So maybe the option is instruments of the orchestra, or maybe the lesson is ballet, or maybe the lesson is barnyard songs, or maybe the lesson is whatever. But just like I would structure a lesson for my classroom, my in-person classroom, I sort of think about it in that way. So I think about like the things that would go together in that lesson. And so I have 2 or 3 different lesson options for every grade level, just so that they have a choice. But within those lessons, then I have sort of a formula that I've been using, and I wanted to share that with you. So I actually made a little freebie resource file, and it's on the links page. It's free. It's on my Teachers Pay Teacher store, but it's just a little template that you can use. I knew I flipped this around too soon. I shouldn't have done that. Okay, sorry, Facebook. So it's just this little resource that I've sort of put together. It's not fancy. It just helps me organize my thoughts, because when I'm planning, it feels like there are just too many options and too many resources. So this helps me sort of pare down and plan. So with each lesson, I sort of think about the different blocks that I want to have. So for a kindergarten lesson, I would only do like 2 blocks. For second or third, maybe 3. Maybe fourth and fifth, I do 4 blocks, maybe. But those blocks sort of correspond with the videos I'm going to create for that lesson. And so like if I'm going to do a kindergarten lesson, I know that they only have so much time that they can spend doing their music class, right? So, so there we go. Sorry, I had a little spam come up on Facebook. So I know that kindergarten I can only allot so much time for their lesson. So for them, I would only give like 2 blocks of the lesson, or 2 blocks in their lesson. For third or fourth, I know that they can handle a little bit longer. So I do a 3-block lesson or a 4-block lesson, depending on what I think the kids can handle. So for each of those little content blocks, I use this organizer to plan, like, okay, in this content block, I'm going to do this, in this one, I'm going to do this. And right next to it is a little checklist that I can say, like, because I'm creating a video for each one of these. So like recorded, uploaded, lives, just to let me know like where is it in progress. So in the block would be like what I'm going to teach or what I'm going to share. I have a little spot for notes over on the side. That's a freebie if you want it, and it's on the links page, along with, I see Heather says, can you please include a link to your iPad stand? Yes, it's on there on the links page, but also I have a whole page on my Amazon with tech resources and things that you can use, and I've shared that over the last couple weeks. So in these little blocks, each one of these sort of represents a video. So like, for example, I would do a 4 or 5 minute video, maybe a little longer for older grades, but I'm trying to keep them short. So for like this lesson, if I have like 3 videos that are 4 minutes long, that's only 12 minutes for the lesson, and no kids can handle that. But each one is like a small piece. So if kids are getting just a piece of the lesson, they'll get one or more of those videos. I hope that makes sense. So like the first block for my younger kids maybe would be vocal exploration, maybe it would be body percussion, maybe it would be singing a song we already know. So in this block, maybe I would do a vocal exploration block where I do something with a puppet and they get to echo me, and that's a 3 or 4 minute video that I would create, record, and have as the first part of their lesson. Now I use, our school district uses Canvas. So on a page, I could have video 1, video 2, video 3, all on the same page. And kids could go through and do those sort of in sequence. But the first one would maybe be vocal exploration, maybe it would be body percussion, Maybe it would be singing a familiar song. Maybe in the next block, I want to introduce something new. Maybe it's a different solfege syllable. Maybe it's a new note value. Maybe I'd want to read a new book, but that would be the next block. And then maybe in the last block, maybe then I do an exploratory thing. As I go down on the blocks, I try and do the more important things at the beginning 2 blocks because I don't know if the kids will get to the last 2. So like maybe this is like fun video or exploring the orchestra or something else. But I try and sort of organize and think about it in these sort of blocks. And I think about with a kindergarten lesson, I would only do like 1 or 2 and then, more as kids can handle that depending on what I want them to do. So what can you put in those blocks? Let me make sure I'm hitting what I want to say. Yeah, so short videos for each little block, and then 2 or 4 depending on what they can do. I don't do an intro video like, hey, welcome to the lesson. Here's what we're going to do, because I don't think anybody watches those. I don't watch those. And I know from doing them for my blog and stuff that people don't really watch those intro videos. So I don't do those. So I just like jump right in. And then the cool thing is, if you plan it out, if you don't see like, hey, first graders, if you do a song in here, you can pull it and use it for multiple grades. They can be interchangeable. So like if I'm doing a new song for first grade, but it's a song that my second graders, who were first graders last year, would know, I can put it here, here is a new song for first grade, and then I can use it as a beginning opening block for second grade or something. I can pull it back out. But I try and do those videos sort of compact and on themselves so that I can pull them and use them for different things. So I don't say stuff like, welcome first grade, or like, well, have a great day, we're all done. I don't say stuff like that. I just try and make them sort of interchangeable as much as I can. Okay, what can you put in those blocks? So I do things like read alouds. So reading aloud one book might be one little block. You could do something on movement, where kids do a movement or a dance or stretching. There's some really fun books that you can do that I've shared in the past couple weeks. I shared Earth Dance, I shared Stretch. I know those are both books that you can use both in class now, or sorry, in class when you get back with students, or right now in digital learning if you want. There's a YouTube channel called Cosmic Kids, or Cosmic Kids Yoga, that is a yoga stretching sort of with a story, so that could be a block. You could do YouTube videos like Cuckoo Kangaroo or Just Dance, or any of those brain break things as a movement block. One of the blocks I try and include in every single lesson is some sort of song where I'm singing for students, where it's me with my ukulele, or me with a xylophone, or me just a cappella, or me with the piano. But I try and include me singing. You could always do a video from YouTube, or a video that works really well, or a song that you've heard, like a recording or whatever. But I try and do myself sing for students, because students want that personal connection and they want to be able to connect with you. And so I try and have myself doing the video as much as possible, just so that kids can have that connection. So read alouds, movement, singing. You could do body percussion. You could do solfege echoing. You could do something computer internet based, where they go out and explore on like a symphony website or something like that. Exposure to world music. All things that you could put in one of those simple blocks, or an instrument introduction. That's what I'm doing for my older kids, sort of get them primed and ready for fifth grade transition to middle school, where they'll join band or orchestra. But I always try and think about that for the older grades, so that they're sort of primed as they go. I see a couple questions. What was the yoga YouTube channel called again? Cosmic Kids Yoga. And Andrew said copyright issues. I already sort of talked about that in this video, but on the links page, there's a link to a resource on the school library journal, where they list all of the publishers and their updated copyright restrictions and rules, so you can see whether it's okay to do read alouds. I wanted to just sort of show a body percussion thing really quick, how you might integrate that, because I think that might be confusing. But before I do that, this is a freebie on my Teachers Pay Teacher store. I put a link to that, so that it's a way to organize those content blocks. And as I'm preparing, you could do like a weekly, this is another lesson content options, like at a glance, so you can see all of your grades, what you're doing with all of your your grades. So it's labeled K1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or another thing I have on there on that resource is just kindergarten lesson ideas. Melody, rhythm, note reading, instruments, composition. So like as I'm going through the internet, I know that people are sort of feeling a little bit overwhelmed with resources in some situations. You can write down like, San Francisco Kids Symphony or San Francisco Symphony Kids thing here, or I was going to do that lesson about the duck song, or whatever, all on here, and I try and organize that to help me find those resources later. So this is a free resource. If you want, you can find that on the links page. Okay, and someone said, will this video be saved so I can review it again later? Yes, all my videos are always saved on Facebook and YouTube, so you can check those out. Okay, so body percussion. If you wanted to do a sort of interactive body percussion thing with kids, and I use this as one of my content blocks, so I might say, I'm going to do a rhythm, repeat after me exactly how I do it. So I might do a clapping pattern. And it's that Dora the Explorer thing again where I'm doing it and then I go, and I'm going to just hope that kids are doing that at home, right? So, and then I could do a couple different versions of that. Great. Okay, so then I might change levels. And by levels, I mean clapping or snapping or patting. I'm not going to do stomping because I'm sitting down, but I could do a different level. And probably for kids, I would push the camera way back so they could see me patting on my knees and not just hear it. Like you won't see it because it's out of frame. But for kids, I would push the camera back so they could see it. Okay, so I might do a different level. Right? So I could do 2 or 3 of those. If I did a couple different levels, that would take maybe, 45 seconds of I do it, they do it. Hopefully I do it, they do it, I do it, they do it. A couple different, levels. And then when I'm ready, once I know that they can handle it, then I'll mix the levels. So I could do, so not just all clapping or not just all patting, but sort of mixing together, right? And that's sort of the progression you want to do if you're teaching body percussion, is one level at a time until they can handle it, and then you move on and mix levels, right? So you would not start with a group of kids and do like you wouldn't do that, because they need to progress through one level, another level, mix those 2 levels, add in another level, mix that in with other things, because that's sort of the progression of what you do with body percussion. So then, maybe that would be one content block. And in the next lesson, maybe I would have something where I would say, okay, now I'm going to clap. And I want you to turn my claps into pats. So if I went clap, 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 you would go pat, 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 pat. I clap, but you're going to take what I do and you're going to turn it into pats. Let's try it. I'm going to clap, you turn it to pats. Great, let me try another one. Wonderful. Okay, now I'm going to pat and you got to clap it. Okay, let's try. Great. Okay, and I'm just assuming that they're doing that. This is not a live in person. This is just pre-recorded, right? I'm assuming they're doing it. I'm hoping they're doing it. We'll see. So then what we might do even further on, you could just do that and diversify for different grade levels. So like for 3rd or 4th grade, I might do like a Takadimi thing or a 16th note thing. For older grades, as they know the rhythms, I might do that. What gets really fun and interesting, which is best for in class because you can then actually see and guide, but because we're doing digital learning, I just have to take a leap of faith, is giving kids a chance to improvise and create. What they're already doing is transfer of knowledge, because if you're saying, I'm going to clap, but you're going to pat, then they have to take that idea of what they hear of a clap, and instead of recreating exactly as a clap, they have to recreate it as a pat. That's a critical thinking thing. They have to transfer the knowledge from one to the other. So now I'm going to do even more, and I'm going to ask them to take this idea and turn it into something different. So I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to clap, but you can't do exactly like me. What you could do is, if I went, you're going to take it and change it somehow. You can either change the level. So if I went clap, 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 which I would say ta, 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 dee, ta, you could go ta, ta, ta-dee-ta, and pat instead of just clapping. Or I could do clap, clap, pat, pat, pat. That's different, isn't it? Yeah, or you could do clap, clap, snap, snap, snap. You could change the level to change it. Let's try. And so I would give them a chance, and then they'd try, right? And then you could also give them the idea if they could change the rhythm. So if you're going to stay all on clapping level, you could do something like this. If I went ta, ta, ta-dee, ta, you could do ta, 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 ta. Not exactly the same. It's sort of similar. It sort of sounds sort of the same, but it's different, right? So if I went ta, ta, ta-dee, ta, you could also go ta-dee, ta, ta-dee, ta. You kept the level, but you changed the rhythm. And it's giving kids a chance to just like slight variations, right? Which is leading them to improv. Like that'll eventually lead to improv. But you're slowly working them into that. I would start, and that whole thing might take 5 minutes, 6 minutes, because that'd be one block of my lesson, right? So, but it's just slowly leading them there. So first is just echoing on one level, change to a new level, maybe mix the levels, maybe add a third level. So maybe you're doing clapping, patting, and snapping. Right? And then you're giving them the chance to go further. With my K1 and 2, maybe I wouldn't do the improv part. Maybe I wouldn't have them change levels. Maybe it'd just be just the echoing. I mean, it's whatever you think your students would need. But that's a way that you can incorporate body percussion, and you can have them explore and do more of that. And it is more of that what I would normally do anyway. I'm just doing it in a digital way. I'm just hoping and assuming I'm doing my Dora the Explorer, like hoping that they're doing it. I don't have a way to check that, but that's okay. It's giving them a chance to explore and try. You could even have them do non-traditional body percussion. So instead of just clapping or patting or snapping, you could have them pat in another place. Right? You could have them do whatever you want. Right? You could give kids that option. But that's just a way to take that lesson that I would normally do in my class anyway and just sort of make it a digital learning lesson. Okay, I see a couple people said a couple things. Let me quick run back and catch those before we go on. Yep, mixing up the progression. Do I do a video record on my device or do you use a program? I just record on my iPhone, and that's it. And it with the camera's pretty good. Like I said, I have a little clip-in microphone. It works pretty well, but that's the easiest for me. Way better than the resolution on my junky old computer laptop from school. Let's see. Is there a way to reverse the camera like you did when you read a book? Studio is the app we use within Canvas. If you're on your phone, yes, you can flip and use either your FaceTime camera or the other camera. It just depends. Oh, you're asking about the orientation, flipping vertical. That's only an option through the Facebook Live platform. So I'm sorry, Pauline, I don't know the answer to that. Probably there's a way you could do it through iMovie, but I'm not exactly sure. Paula, if you send me a direct message about the mic that I'm using right now, I can show you the exact one I have. I think it's Movo. But there's another one on there that seemed to be a little bit nicer that is about the same price point, so you could check that out too. And then someone on Instagram said, do you require them to submit a video showing you what they're doing? No. And I'll talk about that in a second, why I don't require that, but I'll get to that in just a second. Okay, so let me hit some of your questions. Doing great. I'm going to answer some of your questions. These are some of the questions people submitted earlier today on Facebook, so I'm going to answer some of those. And I'll just say right now, I do not always have the answer. In fact, probably most of the time, I don't have the answer. But I'm just giving you my sort of honest opinion as a teacher who's taught for a while and sort of has an idea about technology. I don't know. So I'm going to just give you what I think might work. But one thing I would say is that now is the time to really use your resources. So go to a Facebook group that you're a part of, that you know, that you trust. And before you ask a question, search through the group, because you might ask a question that has been asked 20 times already and the answers are already been given 20 times. So just do a quick search in that group. And then if you don't find the answer, then you can put in your question. But I would say do that search first, because so many people have been asking so many great questions and there have been some great resources already shared. So go to that Facebook group you already trust. You can join my Facebook group, Every Moment Matters Music Education Community, and search those questions, and then if you can't find the answer, then ask. Okay, so let me just tell you a couple quick things about technology, because I was just asked on Instagram, do you have kids submit a video? No. And the reason is my school district does not already support that. My district uses Canvas. There is a way for students to give answers and things, but video is not really a simple, easy option for them because kids don't know how to do it. There are some really cool platforms out there like Flipgrid and Seesaw, but my district doesn't use those. And so I've been really careful in the last year or two to not use resources that my district does not condone or does not endorse, because there are some big privacy issues. There are some, I don't want to have students submitting things to me or interactions with students that my district does not think are good or safe. So I'm only using the resources my district allows. I am not branching out to new things unless the district has approved it. So it's sort of a sad answer, but it's the true answer, is that I'm only using the resources I know. And the other good thing about that is if the district uses it or supports it, then they might actually have training on it. They might have someone who knows more about it. We have tech trainers in our district who, if I go to them and say like, hey, there's this, you said we have this thing called Nearpod or whatever, can you help me figure out how to do that? So I try and use all the resources that my district is allowing us, saying is good. Or maybe if I have this new one, I would go to them and say, hey, what do you think about this? And if they say, yeah, you should use that, then I'll use it. But I'm not using it otherwise. So do students submit to me? No, not currently. But there are some really cool programs like Flipgrid. You can do some things through Google Slides, I think, Google Classroom. But I'm just not totally up on that. Those would be great questions to ask in a Facebook group where there are people who give good answers. People have asked about, do you do synchronous videos where like they're live, or do you pre-recorded? I don't do live. Again, my district, that's not something that they are really pushing. And I know that I have students in my building who their parents drive them to school for an hour or two a day, and they sit in the school parking lot using the school devices and the school's free Wi-Fi. I know that they do that. So I don't say like, hey, join me at 9 a.m. because I know there are students that like, maybe they can't get online, and I don't want to pressure them to be like, you got to be online at 9. I know that there are some times where like I have a really big school, I have 1,200 students, and so maybe their homeroom teacher is like, we're doing our reading thing at 9, so I don't feel like I can request that of students. So I am not doing live videos. I'm only doing pre-recorded, but that also helps the kids who are like, I'm going to get on Saturday or whatever, like, well, then they can go in and watch those whenever they want. So if you do a live video or a live thing, especially if there's interaction like you're on Zoom or Microsoft Teams, if you can record it, that's great. So then students who are not watching can watch later. But then also, especially if it's something like Zoom, then if something happens or students say something or anything that you think is inappropriate or not good or whatever, then you've got a recording of that, and you know that what happened. You've got the facts of all that. So that's why I don't do live or things like that. I try and do just pre-recorded. It gives me a little bit more control. It's more freedom for the kids who can't be live, that sort of thing. But that's why I do that. Some people have asked about increased engagement. Like, oh man, I have 800 students, but only 14 of them are accessing the assignment. How do you get more people to access your homework? Again, this is going back to like, I'm giving kids grace because I do know that there are students who come and they sit in the parking lot for an hour a day and use the school's free Wi-Fi. Maybe in that time, there's not enough time for them to get to the music lesson or to get to the art lesson. And maybe they can only get to their homeroom teacher's lesson. And maybe there are technical difficulties or whatever. I am going to give them grace for that. And if they don't get to music, that's okay. But that's my personal feeling. I also know that like I'm just not going to be stressed out about it. And if an administrator or someone comes to me and says, but what about, then I'm going to say, okay, well then what about the kids who can't get online, or what about, whatever. there are so many things that are out of my control as a teacher. I can't control who has internet. I can't control who has technology. I can't control if there are 4 kids sharing one laptop. I can't control that, but I can give them options. So when they do come to the music page, they've got options for lessons. That's why I do the blocks of 4 or 5 minute videos. So if they can only get to one of those blocks, that's okay. But I'm giving them choices to actually access. I'm also using videos because I know kids do videos well, and maybe they can't use the laptop technology. Maybe they can grab their mom's phone and use YouTube or whatever. And so I know kids are good at that. So that's another reason I'm sticking to something like that. But how do you get increased engagement? So I'm using my homeroom teachers for help. So I'm going to those homeroom teachers and saying, like, how are you contacting students? Are you doing a live Zoom video? Can I jump in on that for 5 minutes just to say hi? Are you sending home a daily announcement? Can I have just a line in there where there's a link to my page? Or, what are you doing to connect with students? Can you let them at least know that there's a music assignment and it's about the French horn or whatever, there's a really fun video about, the cup song. Can you make sure that they know that, I'm using the homeroom teacher as like a way to communicate, because I know that homeroom teacher has a better connection with the students and parents in their homeroom than I do. And so I'm using them, I'm reaching out to them. I'm emailing if I can. My school has Canvas, so there's an email platform, so I'm blasting out announcements every once in a while. I'm able to reach out to certain students if I want. Another idea you can use is your school's social media. So if your school has a Twitter or a Facebook or something, record a 3-minute video of saying, like, oh my gosh, I've got so many fun songs in the music lessons. I can't wait to see who's going to sign in or whatever. Or I'm giving away, I don't know, dojo points to the first 40 kids who sign in. They're getting double dojo points. Oh my gosh. So that's a way for, if you use the school social media to reach some of those students and give them an incentive to find your page. Okay. Stephanie on Facebook says, my classroom teachers have invited me to their weekly Zoom sessions. It's so much fun to see the kids at home. I bet it is fun. I bet you have way more engagement on your page because you're connecting with them and making that happen. Okay, a couple more pre-recorded questions, then I'm going to see if there's anything else. Okay, so someone asked, how do you organize manipulatives? Not a digital learning question, but it is a just manipulatives in your classroom question. So like those popsicle sticks you hand out or the bags of centers or whatever, how do you organize them? Well, I would say use clear bags. So I use Ziploc bags. There's a really nice... I'm sure you can find it in a lot of different places, but at Walmart they have a snack size bag that's like a square shaped snack size bag. It's perfect for centers. And so I use that bag a lot. But I use Ziploc bags. A lot of times I'll get donated from parents, Ziploc bags, things like that. But I use those clear bags to bag everything together. I put them in clear totes or clear bins so that I can find them much easier. My first year doing centers, I bought these on sale, like dark green, hard plastic bins, and they were great for holding stuff, but I could never find what I wanted. I was continually looking through bins. So I color code a lot. I put them in clear containers so I can find them a lot faster. I try and label as clearly as I can, and I try and group like things together, so all my rhythm stuff together, or all my rhythm sorts together, or all the recorder stuff together, just so I can find it a little bit easier. One other thing that I found a year or two ago is these Snap Pockets, and they're clear, and they're this really sort of nice thick plastic. It's really good for a lot of different sort of centers stuff, but it holds a lot, and so it's a really nice thing that I've used. I've not had any wear out yet, so cross your fingers. But this is on my Amazon page, and I can send you to that if you're interested. But it's a really nice way, and it isn't completely sealed, so air can get pushed out, and it folds really well, and it actually fits in totes really well too. But really nice plastic letter size folders, and a whole sheet of paper fits in. So even if it's laminated paper, it fits right in. Those don't usually fit in the Ziploc gallon bags, but they will fit in these containers. Okay, another not necessarily digital learning thing people ask. How do you do Carnival of the Animals? Someone said, I teach it different every year. I don't know. I don't really teach Carnival of the Animals. And I know that it makes me feel weird as an elementary teacher to say that, but at my school where I have 1,200 students, I see them about 20 times a year. I don't have a lot of time to devote to things that are not singing or moving or dancing or creating. And Carnival of the Animals just sort of gets pushed by the wayside. I do Peter the Wolf every year, and I sort of have to pick and choose what are the things that I do. So Carnival of the Animals, I don't really teach it in class, but I do put it in substitute teacher lessons, and so there's some really cool books that you can buy that would go along with it. There are some fun Teachers Pay Teachers resources, I think, that you can use to go with that. There is a Bugs Bunny video that was published on TV in 1976 that I think maybe you can find a DVD, but there are a lot of recordings on YouTube and Vimeo and stuff of Bugs and Daffy learning Carnival of the Animals. So I usually leave Sarah Bybee's Carnival of the Animals pack from Teachers Pay Teachers along with the Bugs Bunny video, and I put those together, and it makes a really cool substitute teacher lesson plan, which I'm sure you could use as a digital learning lesson plan too. But really great resources, and I put those together to do Carnival of the Animals. Someone asked about digital learning. How do you teach specific rhythmic or melodic skills? It depends on the skill. For melodic skills, a lot of times I'm doing in my first block of each lesson, I'm doing something that's solfege, or I might choose, if it's like we're doing songs with an octave, well then I choose the songs that work best for that. There's nothing different about what I'm doing digital learning, what I'm doing in the classroom. I'm always being really picky about the literature I'm teaching, the songs I'm teaching, the solfege I'm doing with kids based on what they need for the lesson for that year. So it's the same with these digital learning things. If I'm teaching a song or if I'm doing solfege echoing or whatever, it's going to be based on those specific melodic skills that they need to learn. Reading on the staff is a little bit different, but as far as exposing them to the melodic things, that just is a teaching planning thing. For rhythmic practice and for note value, I'm doing the note neighborhood stuff that I've been sharing in the last couple weeks. I've been pulling out all these fun note neighborhood lessons that I don't always have time for in the school year, and I've been doing screencasts of them, or I'm doing the worksheets online for them, all that sort of fun stuff that kids can do that get to those specific rhythmic concepts. Like practice with the half notes or practice with time signatures or bar lines, all that sort of stuff. I'm giving the kids the chance to do that now with either screencasts or putting Note Neighborhood on their learning platform. Okay, let's see if I got to almost everything. I got a lot of people's questions from the Facebook. Cool, I think I got to a lot. Let me just really check here really quick and see if there's anything else that's popped up. There are a couple that I've seen. Oh, someone left a question on Instagram that just said Z. I'm assuming that was a mistake. Let's see. Okay, that's all the questions on Instagram I can see. Sarah says, be careful about the Bugs Bunny version. It calls the donkey an ass. So does the Bible. So I'm not gonna. I don't usually go into that, but I've never had trouble with it so far. Okay, choice boards for take home. There are some really cool ones you can find on Facebook. I've shared about a couple of them in the in my Facebook group, Every Moment Matters Music Education Community. Some choice boards there. One was from I think Texas music teacher. Music therapy at Texas, North Texas maybe. There's some really cool choice boards you can have if you have non-digital learners. Susan asked, will you tell us how to find your Amazon page? It's on the links page. If you search Amazon, you can go right to it. But if you send me a direct message, I'll send you the link if you want, if you're interested in digital tech resources. I'm seeing over on Instagram, how do you share materials that are privacy protected? I don't share materials that are privacy protected unless I have the permission of the publisher or author. And so I've already shared a couple times today that there's that link on the links page with all the publishers that are allowing you to do read alouds. If it's my resources, I know that I can use those. If you have questions about my resources, you can send me a message. But for the most part, if you have one of my digital resources, then you have permission to share it on a closed site or share it with your students. Just take it down at the end of the school year, but use what resources you have to make your lessons great. So like for my Note Neighborhood, I'm doing a screencast, and in the last couple weeks I shared about how I do that. That you can like record your screen as you go through the PowerPoint, and so that's something that I've been doing for my favorite folk songs or my Note Neighborhood sets. All those things I've been just doing a recorded version of that and sharing that with students. Carrie asks, are we allowed to use TPT resources that we have purchased? Mine, yes. Other authors, you'd need to ask them. It really depends on the person who created it and their expectations. But if it's something that I have created that you have, you can, yes, you can share it with your students as long as it's either on a closed website or a secure website, just so you're not like posting all the resources on like, here, this is open Facebook page or whatever. Just if you're smart about it, do the best you can to keep things secure. But yes, of course, use resources to help teach your students. Okay, I think there are a couple more quick questions on here. I'm going to check Facebook really quick to see if you have any more digital learning questions. For some reason, Facebook does not update questions as fast as it should. The live function is a little bit odd. Oh, people are a lot of times asking upper grades. How do you teach for upper grades? That's a great question that I feel like whether it's digital learning or not digital learning, teachers are always asking, what do you do to captivate upper grades? It's a great question. So for me, let's see, I had a whole list of things that I might use. I don't know where that went. So, so upper grades. Last week I shared about a resource called This World Music, and it's sort of like a mixer, like a soundboard, where you can take traditional African rhythms, and you can like turn up one drum or turn down another drum or turn off another thing. And that's sort of cool because it gives kids a chance to hear things, to isolate different sounds, to hear how they work together. They get to control the volume, which is really fun. And I shared that last week. We went to the page last week to look at it, but it's on the links page if you're interested in that. That has been working really well for my upper grades. I try and share fun videos that illustrate music concepts. So a lot of times there are some fun musical artists like OK Go. Is a really cool musical artist when most of their stuff is great to use with kids, and they have such bright, fun, just like crazy videos of them in zero gravity on an airplane, of them blowing up different paints, and there's a one with all these printers. Like, it's super fun, interactive, but kids really like them, and you can tie it to musical concepts. One other thing that I've already shared before, but with my upper grades, I am doing like a huge push towards the instruments. So there are so many resources out there for that. Great resources from different orchestras around the world, bands around the world, but I'm doing a huge push into that because I know this is like recruitment time for middle school, and those middle school teachers are losing that chance. So I'm doing everything I can to say, like, here, is a lesson on the flute. Here's a lesson on the clarinet. Here's a lesson on whatever. Just to push students into thinking about the instruments so that next year they will join band and orchestra and choir. So they're thinking about that, but especially for instruments, because this is the time where like my middle school teacher would be showing up at my school with an armload of clarinets or whatever to give kids a chance to try them out. But I know that they don't have the chance to do that right now. So I'm doing a huge push towards that. Okay, so a couple closing things. So this is the last Musical Mondays live video of the semester, and I'm going to be doing more things in the coming weeks, but just not on Mondays live at 8. But there are 60 Musical Mondays videos now, so if you go to my YouTube page or my Facebook page, you can access any of those old videos, 60 different Musical Mondays videos. It feels crazy to say that, but that's a lot. So in the coming weeks, I'm going to keep adding to that website, digitalmusiclessons.weebly.com. That's my site that I've created to just host different lesson ideas. So there are all different sorts of things there. If you check that out, there'll be more ideas coming out there. One thing I would just really encourage you is to not get overwhelmed about all of the resources or requirements or things you got to do. So in my head, when I'm sitting down, so like that's why I made this resource to like help you sort of plan ahead. When I'm thinking about what am I going to put in my content blocks, I think about I choose one thing to highlight. So if it's kindergarten, maybe the thing I'm going to highlight is the interval so me. So maybe in the first block we do solfege where we do so me. Maybe in the second block we do a song that has so me. Maybe we watch a video based on, maybe that's all I'm going to focus on, but it's that one thing I'm going to try and hit in each one of those content blocks. Having a focus like that for the lesson helps me think and it helps me plan better. And especially for digital learning, when I feel like people are stressed out about all the things that they can do or that they might have to do or whatever, if you focus on that one specific concept that you want to really highlight in your lesson, it helps you plan better. I mean, that's just a planning thing that I would do if I was in the classroom anyway, like what's your I can statement, but or what's your one goal of the lesson? Well, I'm a music teacher, I have like 12 goals in my lesson, but I try and think of that like one thing in each lesson and then I build the lesson around that. And like I said before, by different grades, I think about different things. So for kindergarten, first grade, maybe it's just 2 of these blocks that I would take to teach that. Maybe for older grades who can handle more, I would do longer. But trying to focus on that one concept or one idea really helps me to focus and plan my lessons better. So I'm not like, spiraling out on all these things I could do. I'm actually getting to the things that I want to do. Okay, so quick recap. There's a fun new resource to help you plan. There's even there's a way to sort of do an at a glance look, or you can also just compile resources. That's on my Teachers Pay Teachers. It's a freebie there, but I linked to that. We also talked about all the resources on the links page, things you can do as far as like organization, things you can do for lesson ideas on my lessons page, digitalmusiclessons.weebly.com, which is on the links page. It has a lot of lessons you can already pull and use. There are going to be more coming out later. But if you have any other questions or anything else going forward, please send me an email. My email is makemomentsmatter@gmail.com. You can also just send me a direct message here on Facebook or Instagram or whatever you're watching on. I'll try and answer there too. But the school year is winding down, and I'm sure everybody is still stressed, but we're going to make it. And like I said at the very beginning, give yourself a little bit of grace because we're all thrown into this. We're building the plane as we're on the plane, flying through the air. And someone said earlier, they're like, we're building the plane, we're on the plane, well, the plane's on fire. So give yourself a little grace because we're all trying to make it happen. But also, it's a global pandemic. It's okay to be stressed out. So just focus in on the things that you know that you can do. Take the resources you feel good about. Maybe take the songs and the lessons you would already have taught or are already going to teach and just focus on those because that's something that you know you can handle. It's in your wheelhouse. So just simplify, have a great time, and make fun connections with kids. Okay, thanks so much for coming along with me tonight. If you have any questions, shoot me a message, but you can always find me here on my pages and on my blog and wherever, and I hope I'll get to connect with y'all soon. Okay, everyone, have a great week. Thanks so much for coming along with me tonight. Bye, Facebook.